We're here to talk about the creation of commando covers, and this cover is essentially a commando cover that was done as a poster for the National Army Museum, so I think that would be as good a place as any to start.
It was similar, very similar to working on a commando cover, the average commando cover, because obviously the subject matter was exactly the sort of thing we've been doing over all the years. And it was just a case of making sure that not only did we satisfy commando editor, but we were also satisfying the ultimate user of the cover or the poster or whatever. So we had to go just that wee bit further, just to make sure that everybody was happy.
Mm-hmm. With colours as well for the background, because of the use they were going to be making it, as well as making sure it was as accurate as possible with regard to the information and the equipment and the uniform and so forth. And it was what they were after.
Yeah, there was I can remember a wee thing where they came up with the somewhat unusual request that we shouldn't show his gun. Probably this political correct thing, but after all, if we're going to show a commando, we've got to show that he is carrying his armament. Exactly. So I did devise this wee trick of taking it round the back and not showing the whole thing, but we're still able to show that he is armed with his Sten gun.
And it's not held in a threatening way in this particular.
No, that's correct.
Whereas if we go to this one, The Legend of the Longbow,
yes,
which is dates from about 1970.
It's quite some time ago, yes.
Yes, that longbow is very much held in a threatening position.
That's correct, yes. And over the years, as you all know, we've shown many as a character firing straight out at the reader, which is the way to do it in the attacking pose.
Would the way you approach this commission, which is very much poster, it's a full illustration of an actual event, would it differ in any significant way from the Legend of the Longbow, which is more of a, I would have said, a graphic thing, final effect with the big RAF round?
Yes. I very much enjoy doing this sort of thing. We haven't done an awful lot of it recently.
I'll take that on board.
But you'll take that on board. But I do. It appeals to the designer in me, shall we say, as opposed to the illustrator. Yeah. And this one is an absolutely ideal. This is one that I'm proud to say I did, because it worked out perfectly, the figure and just the general arrangement, simplicity.
Yes, I think that's
very much
a huge part of it to me.
Yeah. Yes. And you said at the time that you liked doing them that way because you could save a lot on paint.
Of course, yes. It appealed to the Scotsman in me.
Exactly. But the main thing is whether it's this cover or that one there, it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but we obviously have to like it and assess it and so on, as has the National Army Museum this time. But before we even see them, you have been far more critical of them than we have ever been. Because you are not happy unless you see it sitting exactly the way you want it to sit.
Yes, exactly, George. I've always said that I'm not going to be happy. One is never totally happy with the result, because you always feel you can do a wee touch here and there that might well improve it, in my estimation, but I don't think it would be noticed by the reader or even the editor for that matter. But I've always said that unless I'm, getting on sort of into the 90% happy with something that leaves my board, it's not going to leave the board.
No. Would you, you've often said to me when you've come in, I've worked this a couple of ways, and on paper before you put any paint anywhere near it to do the rough. Do most of them, would you do a single rough, or would you do multiple roughs, or would you do little thumbnails?
I would do, in most cases I would be doing multiple roughs. Working, for instance, working on the aircraft covers, where we have 2 aircraft dogfighting. As far as I'm concerned, angles
Yes.
are very important. Opposing angles of the 2 aircraft, you know, the way they're meshing into the composition, and hopefully illustrating what we want to illustrate, one attacking the other, etc. I may well do half a dozen
Really?
layouts, just very rough pencil layouts, just working on angles, finding out which
before.
works. And of course, I've always got to remember too that this is part of
Yes.
it, and also must remember to leave you room for your title.
And there must have been a double complication there when you had to leave room for the title and that nasty barcode that we used to have to cover out. It's an enormous dead area and a very small illustration. So yes,
Yes,
I'm glad we've seen
yes.
the back of that.
It has always been not a problem,
Just another
a
factor.
challenge.
Yes.
It's a challenge,
Mhm.
and I've always enjoyed the challenge. Sometimes I can be quite frustrated and not quite getting what I want out of it, but then we're all human. We're not totally perfect.
And can we reveal on film who that character is based on?
Well, no, this is something filling in here. A very good friend of mine, and George and Callum. I don't know if you knew him, Scott. He was a letterer in DC Thompson's, and he is now 92. We see him quite regularly. He went through Dunkirk and all the way up through Italy, so he was quite a long-serving soldier. And it just so happened he was on the phone this morning. My wife hasn't been too well, had a bit of a chest bug, and he was on the phone this morning just found it to ask how she was. And when I come in here, I see this, and it wasn't based on Bill, but having spoken to him this morning, and I came and saw this character, the face and the moustache and the dark hair, it's quite amazing, the similarity between the two.
Which would beg the question then, as I posed earlier.
Yes.
Who was the model for the Barbary 8?
Barbary 8, well, as I said to you, I'm going to take the fifth on that one.
The one thing that I notice on this is something I consider you very, very good at, is making the sky, in quotes, the wrong colour. It's not a blue sky, it's a very red and yellow sky.
Yes.
Is that strictly an illustrative thing, or is that again bringing the designer in you into it to make a sharper contrast?
It's purely, I would say, now let me think. I think it's purely an illustrative thing, in that I want to catch the reader's eye, really hit them right in the eye with a real splash of colour. And it does actually stem from working on more futuristic space type things like Dan Dare and Star Blazer, which we worked on over the years as well, where you could actually bring in way out colours, colours that would never be thought of normally in the illustration, especially for Commando, where we're talking about authenticity.
Yes, more realism.
But every now and again there was a chance to do something like that, and you would just go ahead and take the chance.
Yeah, exactly. And the intriguing thing too about the likes of this cover is you did this very often to us, and you brought in a cover that you could actually use it 4 ways.
Yes.
And you would say it was one way, we would say it was the other way. The letterer would then letter it in another way.
Yes.
And then the process would set it up in the 4th way. So it was confusion all round, but it was good fun.
Yes, yes. That again, I suppose, shows the, for the want of being slightly big-headed, shows that playing around with the angles does open up the possibility of using it, you know, in another way.
So does that mean, Ian, that you could, the angle that you decided on for that cover, could it may well be that when you do the next one, you may have another angle that you've got in mind that you could use elsewhere or something like that? Or do you just approach each one separately?
Each one, they're all approached differently, separately, Scott. But there is also the danger too that they can start looking all rather alike.
Yeah.
And then you're depending on, for instance, we did one just recently of the ME262 attacking the fortress, which didn't need an awful lot of effort to make it look different to this one.
Yeah.
But had it been, say, a Spitfire and a Focke-Wulf 190,
Yeah,
then there would be the great danger. Then you would really have to pay more attention to the composition.
Do you then have in your mind's eye almost a catalogue of all the, or not all the illustrations you've ever done, that would be different, but the most recent ones? Do you recall them as you're working on a rough for the next one?
Very difficult. I don't, not as strict a catalogue as that. But obviously, having worked on the covers, and also way back in the old days on A Race, where you were doing 64 pages,
oh yes,
and perhaps 40 or 50 of these pages were dogfight scenes. Then you really had to work hard to, close-ups, back, all sorts of angles. So of course the Commando covers have benefited greatly from that experience.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's variety that you look for.
Very much so.
You're looking for as many different
yes.
angles and approaches as you can take to bring out the best in it. And in this one in particular, the distance between these two aircraft looks very, very real indeed. Yet it's almost as if they're touching, but
yes.
you've just caught it in the right way that it looks authentic and has got that touch of Kennedy about it.
Yes. It's again, we're coming back to technique. The aircraft further back, just like in a photograph where something the background might be slightly out of focus. That
yes,
gives you your depth.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not going to do that in the cover. So what you do is you just tone the colours back a bit. The green, and you go for a slightly different green.
yes.
Again, we're now entering the world of license. A bit of license.
A bit of artistic
Sometimes, if you really wanted to, you took this and put it up against the authentic colour that was used during the war, you might find that my green or my brown here is slightly different, but it's been intentional to just to achieve the effect.
And if anybody criticises, we can always blame the printers.
Yes. Yes.
And there must have been times when you came in, well, I know there have been times when you came in and were given an outline brief and you thought, there's no way we can do that, that's impossible. So how much of your job is actually political in explaining to an editor who can't actually visualise what he really wants? He's barking completely up the wrong tree.
I don't think I've never quite but now and again, we've had one or two just recently. Hang on a second, because of the perspective involved, or whatever, it's going to be almost impossible to achieve the effect you want, because so often a writer or an editor, when he gives me, or any artist for that matter, an idea, he's not giving a still picture. He's actually describing a moving incident. And then the artist has the job of zeroing in on that one particular split second. So sometimes it's a wee bit difficult to but I to explain this to an editor. Although, having said that, my experience over the many years I've been in this business, editors, they know, you know, when I'm coming up with something that, how can I put it? It's just my experience that can explain the viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and you have a great visionary capacity in that you can take the most horrible scribble, which you're handed to by the likes of myself, and turn it into something that really works. You know,
Yeah, that's part of the challenge of the job again, really, isn't it? Very much so. And it's a lot of the fun I've had out of it has been the fact that I've been very, completely taken over by aeroplanes, aeronautic things, because I wanted to fly when I was young, but that wasn't to be. It's maybe just as well, because I don't think I would have been a very good pilot somehow or other.
you might not be sitting here now.
That's exactly.
Well,
exactly.
I mean, if you become an airman, perhaps you wouldn't have become an artist, or were you already drawing it?
Yes, but certainly going back to that, just the fact that it's this tremendous interest I've had, and it's still an abiding interest in all things aeronautical, and I love to get, as you know, get as much detail into it as possible. Got to watch that I don't get too much detail, and then of course it stops the action.
Yes.
It becomes more of a how can I put it? It's no longer an illustration. It becomes a
technical drawing.
A technical drawing, exactly, Callum.
But see, I think that you always manage to capture the drama and the impact of
Mm-hmm.
the action in a cover. You know, you always seem to know when you've got a good solid action image rather than a technical drawing.
Yeah, yes. Scott, to put it no higher than this, because of my frustrated ambition to fly, I suppose I put myself in every aeroplane I fly. I'm in every cockpit, and it helps me imagine the movements,
Yeah.
the various movements, and the whirling about in the sky. And of course, I love seeing a lot of the documentary stuff that we're now seeing on television, films, air films that have been mouldering away somewhere in a cupboard. Now folks are bringing them out, and
Yes.
I dearly love watching these.
But that's all very well, but how does that help your job in Magnificent Commandos? Did you want to be a commando?
Exactly. There again, I suppose it's just one's love of trying to portray things, attention to detail.
Attention to detail.
Yes, very much so, because I have quite a library at home. 2 of the big metal cabinets, the
Yes.
office cabinets, twin door jobs, just absolutely full of reference to aircraft, uniforms, tanks, you name it.
Horses?
Horses,
Yes.
yes, horses as well. My favourite subject.
Cavalry charge on the Kilkees. 1,542 horses. 13
Yes.
of them with unseated riders.
That's right. Yes, I made the mistake of way back trying to draw horses as well as I drew aircraft. And although they weren't my icon in DC Thompson's when I worked in the office was a chap called George Ramsbottom, and he was a very good horse artist. And he taught me quite a lot about drawing horses. And I got quite a few withering comments as well about the proportions of certain parts of the horse.
The withers, perhaps.
So of course that meant that I was going to have to be hopefully as good at horses as I was at aeroplanes. I don't think I've ever been quite that, But however, we've got by.
I've never had a complaint about any horse that you've drawn from me.
We lose these. I hate the hooves, and I lose them in the dust or behind all the grass and the mud.
Another trick of the trade.